Okay, we should be good to go this time. You guys will have to let me know if you can actually hear me. I'm usually not like that. I'm not the most tech savvy person you've ever met, but I'm also not usually I usually don't have problems like that. But welcome back. Let me know in the chat as long as you guys can hear me. And we are here in the race shop now, Southern Oregon, getting things ready to go. I was saying there while I was muted, Carly, she's back over this way. She's working her tail off right now. We've been working every single day in the shop. You guys will have to pop in here in the chat. Let me know where you are from, what you're doing, what's your local racetrack, what's the month of March going to look like. This is kind of the first month where you could argue for anybody it's going to be. I mean, I guess I wouldn't say super busy. March isn't necessarily a crazy month, but I think definitely once April hits, once May, and then of course the summer months and where things really kick up. But we actually have some action this month besides what's going on that was happening down there in Florida. So welcome to this Thursday. We are it's 3:55 on the dot here on the West Coast in the Pacific time zone. Like I said, we have been digging really hard the last couple of days, last couple of weeks, just getting things ready to roll for a big season. A couple people popped in the chat. Amarillo is where Tristan is from. That's actually funny. That caught my eye because we're going to be rolling through Amarillo soon on our way east. Corey said, just got my order from Ohio. Can't wait to see you at Attica and Eldora. Ohio's another big one on the schedule. Tyler popped in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. Mechanicsburg, cool place. Man, I missed back there. It was awesome. When I was with Shark Racing and whatnot, the Hanover area is really neat. There's not like a crazy amount necessarily to do or whatever, but just taking those roads every single day, you have what was that parts store, and then obviously Shark Racing's right there behind it, and then we were just right down the street in a Holiday Inn, and just everything back there. I don't know, it's really cool. Like you drive a couple minutes that way and is Lincoln, and then all the engine shops are right there, and parts people, and lots of really cool stuff in the area. Really enjoyed being back there. Nicholas said he's from New Zealand. Scratch said he's from the Bay Area. Blue said he is wishing Carly a fast recovery. Carly is actually recovering well. She's still got important appointment on. Carly has an important appointment in about 9 days, so that will kind of tell us what the next step is going to be for her. But that's coming up. We're going to kind of figure out what the rest of her recovery looks like. But she's actually been moving around probably more than she should, even, in between the shop, in between the house, hobbling around on crutches. Of course, not putting any pressure on her foot, but been moving like crazy. So Mel said he's in Oregon. Well, I knew that, Mel, but great to see you here in the chat. I'm sure I'm going to see a lot of races here coming up. So as you guys join, make sure to drop, where you're from, what racetracks you're going to be going to kind of get today started. Like I said, talking about, our schedule. We have a very adventurous, ambitious schedule for 2024. And that's why we've been trying so hard to get all of our stuff ready. When you think of, running a set amount of races, right? It's, what's it going to take to make it happen? How many miles are you going to trek? What equipment is going to be needed? What manpower or woman power is going to be needed to make that happen. And then, how many of those races are we going to go and win is the plan. Of course, right. You're always looking at that, but you're also looking at the logistics of it. What do the races pay to win? What are they going to pay to start? What are our bigger shows? What are nights that we can take a little bit more advantage of? Right. So for us on a 70 race schedule, and the reason we're, set for the amount of races we did is to hit, crucial parts of the year where it's not as busy on the West Coast. And that, like those times is when we're, out in the Midwest, right? And we want to be out there as much as possible. Don't get me wrong, but we really planned it. So March and April is a little bit slower out here because the Northwest, it's raining. California is a little drier, but it's still usually wet. And sometimes even if they get those races in, it's some of the races where you're kind of like gritting your teeth, like, oh boy, this is going to be interesting. So that's kind of why, we want to do this Midwest trip to start the season, get down to Texas where it looks like it's going to be a little drier. I guess we'll kind of see with this weekend and next. This weekend they're in Kennedale, the Outlaws, and next weekend they're at the Cotton Bowl in Page, Texas. So we'll kind of see what those races turn out to be, and that will kind of tell us probably what the race at the end of the month that we'll be hitting will potentially look like, all in a similar area. So head out that way, get things going, and then April will be a very busy month. High Limit kicks off their season, or re-kicks it off after the weeks that they have off after East Bay and Golden Isles. So they have their month break, and I'm sure those races will be really busy. But it'll be an interesting time because it'll kind of be the first where we'll see the Outlaws race side by side with High Limit, and kind of who has more cars. How the races differentiate, which I think that both are going to be good shows. And if anything, we're just going to see this, pretty even fields split in half. And, if one place rains out and the other doesn't, then everyone will be at one or the other type deal. So appreciate you guys all popping in here in the chat on this Thursday. Like I was saying, you'll have to say where you're all from and, what this racing season looks like for you, whether you're a crew member, whether you're a race fan, whether you're a driver yourself, whether you're coming up through the ranks. All of it is important. We need every single person in our sport. So get on my phone and start answering your guys' questions. This weekend for myself, we have our last couple Outlaw Kart races coming up. So this weekend we're down in Red Bluff. It's the Vern Wheeler Memorial. So that pays $2,100 to win. And then next weekend's West Coast Nationals. So we're just kind of finishing that off. It's $3,000 to win that. So a couple big kart races coming up. But excited, really feeling the itch to get in the sprint car. I get really excited when stuff is built and ready, right? That's kind of where we're at now. Like once your race car starts looking like a race car, then you're really feeling ready to go. And for us this year, what's really exciting is having some really good help. There's a lot of great partners. I feel like our operation is taking steps in the right direction and where we need to be, of course, to compete at such a high level. What I got to do this last year with Shark Racing was huge, and getting to compete regularly every weekend against, those 12, 15 best guys is exactly what we're trying to build back to just with our own program, right? Keep ourselves in the mix, hit all these big places. That's why we're going to, Knoxville as much as we are again this year, trying to get to Eldora. I don't have PA on the schedule, not for any reason in particular, just kind of how the cards fell, but there's definitely some open weekends in there. It doesn't mean that it doesn't end up on that, as we get a little bit closer and kind of see how things start panning out. So I know the PA posse has a lot of crazy fans, and you guys were absolutely blowing me up, I'll say, about not being in Pennsylvania on the schedule. So let's see, got some good questions here. I know one thing I'm really excited about to start our season is this Texas swing, just in the sense, because I know we have a lot of great fans down there. It's a similar area to where we're at for Chili Bowl. We're always down there in the wintertime, going to Shawnee and kind of all that stuff. But now that we're going to be just a little bit farther south, we're going to hit some tracks that, have been around for a long time, but maybe haven't always gotten the big dates. I know Devil's Bowl being on the Outlaw schedule really captured a lot of attention. And now that Devil's Bowl's gone, I feel like there's a huge need for tracks to kind of fill that spot for the bigger events. So that's where you're seeing, Kennedale, you're seeing Cotton Bowl back on the schedule. And then let's see, we're going to Big O Speedway. I didn't even know that place existed. So those are a couple Texas states. And then of course, High Limit's going to Texas Motor Speedway, not only in April, but also at the end of the year in October. So some really cool things happening down there for all the guys down south. Tristan said, what would you say is a key element for you to take THR racing to the next level in 2024? That's a great question. So for us, I feel like the main thing is just kind of hitting on all areas, right? So like a team is way more than just going out there and winning races, right? It's not just showing up to the racetrack, push out on the track and go. Like it's your preparation, it's your equipment. In racing, there is a huge element financially, right? Every team has to be well funded and have the necessities to go race, whether that's, on the equipment side of things, whether that's your tire budget, whether that's your fuel for your rig to get to the track, the fuel to travel all the miles, the metal to go, right? There's all these different things just in that area on the financial side of it. So, there's a lot of factors, but I think it's, having the right people in place in the right positions, with the right combination. Everything is combination in dirt racing. It's your driver working well with his crew chief, working well with his crew members, with the owner being happy. And that's talking in terms of a team. We're a little bit more of a family operation in that sense, but still, you kind of get what I'm saying. So I think for us, it's just working on our combination and kind of getting our package to where we want it, and then just working on that. And so that's kind of, I think, this year for us. So we build up and we're traveling more, it's, having a better notebook than we've ever had before. We already have some notes on some places we don't. Some things are different. The tires are different, of course, or were different last year. So you get what I'm saying. Things are always changing, but it's just being that on top of it. And, like I said, always working on your combination. And if one thing's not working, fitting into the next. But yeah, this year, like I said, I feel more confident than ever with what we've kind of started the year with in the spot that we're in. And of course, I think our schedule kind of reflects that we're, wanting to take on a little bit of a bigger bite than we have. So that was a great question, but long story short, it's really just everything. You got to be able to work on every aspect. It's not just being the best driver you can be or being the best this. Like, you have to be able to do it all. Like, you need the best driver, best setup. You need the, like I said, to be the most prepared. You got to have the most. You don't have to have the most equipment. That's actually false, but you got to have good, ready equipment that's well maintained and ready to go win races. Let's see. Mel asked, what equipment changes did we make this year? So this year we have a partnership, and I'm going to talk about this in a video coming up. We have a partnership with XXX Racing Chassis, which is the chassis that we were on at Shark Racing. So we're excited to have them on board. So we have, the car I'm starting this year on is a XXX. And yeah, so that's going to be different, but at the same time, it's not different because that's the car that I finished last year in, technically, right, with Shark Racing. It would just be a carbon copy of that, but instead it's sitting here in Southern Oregon, which, like I said, I'm sure we will be talking more about that as we get into the season. Ooh, Chris with a really good West Coast question for all the people on here. What are your thoughts about Stockton shortening their dirt track? So Stockton, I seen a picture of it. I don't know if they're done with it, but it's much flatter and it's, quite a bit shorter. It almost looks like a quarter mile now. Now, Stockton, I feel like, has always had a reputation for being a little unpredictable with their surface. And that's why sometimes maybe they didn't get as many cars as some other tracks in California. And rightfully, they listened, props to them. They listened to kind of the feedback they were getting, and now they changed the racetrack. So hopefully that's a step in the right direction for themselves. I want to see Stockton be successful. But we'll kind of just have to see. I saw a picture of it. I think they're heading in the right direction. They'll probably have to just keep tweaking on it throughout the year. And I don't know how much material they have access to, but if they can get it to where it's a little smaller, I think a little bit more banking, very wide, it'd be really, really good racing, really good track. We got more people popping in. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this Thursday afternoon. I figured we just talk some racing stuff. There's not a lot going on during the weeks now. Like I said, here in a month or two, though, we'll have midweek shows and we'll have all sorts of stuff to fill our schedule. Brandon said, how is Carly healing up? Carly's healing up great. I kind of touched on that at the beginning. She has a very important appointment in about 9 or 10 days right before we leave. And so that will kind of tell us what the rest of her recovery is going to look like. But if you saw her hobbling around, here in Oregon, like she looks great. She just can't put any pressure on that left foot. So she's just using crutches, or, her right leg's going to be super strong because she's bouncing around, literally bouncing on one leg. Corey said, what's your favorite Ohio track, Fremont or Attica? I would say out of the two, Fremont was probably my favorite of those. I really enjoyed Muskingum County just because I ran well there. Anywhere you run good, you tend to like. Like, for example, we went to Wayne County, and I actually thought the track was cool. I just didn't run any good there. So I was like, well, that wasn't that much fun, but that's just how it goes, right? The smaller places, or that place was tough because it was small and it was so fast, and the track was good racetrack. Just, I just didn't pick it up very fast that night. So whatever places you kind of pick up, you tend to like a little more. But Muskingum County was fun. Fremont was a blast too because we were pretty good at Fremont. Almost got in the dash there with the All-Stars, and there was a lot of cars that week that we ran that Ohio Speed Week. So that was a good time. I definitely want to get back to that. It does suck how that kind of falls on top of Dirt Cup and some of the races we have out here. That makes it more difficult to head that way. Paul said, have you raced any Oklahoma tracks that you have on your schedule? Lots of quarter miles. Let's see. So the only Oklahoma place I've been to is Creek County. And then I'm trying to think, last year, where did we? I think that would be it. I don't think we ran anywhere last year in Oklahoma that wasn't there. We just did Lakeside that one night, 81, winded out. That was in Kansas. And then Devil's Bowl was the following weekend. So yeah, I've never been to Oklahoma minus the night I ran Creek County with the ASCS National Tour for Speed Week it would have been 2020. So none of the places I'm going in Oklahoma. I have seen some cool videos. I know Lawton looks like a good time. I have not seen what Thunderbird looks like. I think Arrowhead's also there. Yeah, some of those places I have not seen. So it'll be interesting to get out there for the first time. I enjoy new tracks though, because I enjoy seeing new places and just kind of, that challenge of picking it up. I think a lot of a really good racer, and these guys that are touring, right, is they're really good at getting on a racetrack and going and just boom, wide open, and being able to run basically the fastest lap they possibly can on their first lap, right? You have to be able to pick it up, because the 2 hot laps you get isn't much time, and if you don't figure it out, at least have a good handle on it, you're probably going to be in trouble for the night. Let's see. Jamie said, any thoughts on driving other classes of cars, street stocks, or late models? So if I could pick anything besides a sprint car, if I could be a professional racer, right? I think anyone would always say NASCAR route. I think that's everybody's dream. It's hard to not want to do that, right? But if I'm on the dirt side of things, I think Silver Crown racing would be cool, and I think late model racing would be cool. I think late models are awesome because it just seems like they race for so much money all the time, and there's a lot of options. It's kind of cool. Like you can run at a weekly level, you can run at a regional level, you can run at a national level. And honestly, it feels like there's another level somewhere even in between there. Some of the shows you could classify where 410 sprint cars don't necessarily have that, or they don't have it as frequent throughout the country. You're kind of either racing, like maybe there's a little bit of weekly stuff. And then I feel like, there is some weekly stuff, not crazy, just in some areas. And then, a little bit of regional stuff, but especially with the All-Stars being gone, not as much. And then now there's just the big national shows. So, and that's totally fine. Just saying how it feels, it's not like, it seems like late models, you can kind of go to some different places and run against stiff competition, but maybe not the best of the best. Where in 410 sprint cars, I think it quickly goes one way or the other, very fast. High Creek Fishing says, how's the merch trailer coming along? It's going good. There's still some stuff to figure out with that. Like I was telling you guys about getting a vehicle to tow it and and then I need to put some tires on it. So I think I'm actually taking it in tomorrow. So it's going good. It's going to be a little bit of a project just because, like I said, the season's getting ready to start and it still needs it doesn't need like work for it to work. Like I said, more just figuring out the towing side of it. And then also, what races we'll take it to and what not. Like, for example, this first swing, all these Outlaw shows we're going to, those are exclusive to Platinum members only. So we can't technically have a merch trailer at any of those races. So any World of Outlaw shows this year that are under, like, if the event pays less than so much money in prize money, I think it is, those are exclusive to only Platinum members. And then the bigger events, they have some rules where it allows you to. So those would be the races that we won't get to have it, but that's just kind of how the system works. That's what you sign up for. So we knew that, of course, going into purchasing the merch trailer. Brandon said, did any teams contact you about driving for them in 2024? So I had a couple small discussions, nothing crazy. And then I reached out to a couple directions, but nothing crazy. Like I said, it's kind of tough nowadays. There's not a lot of, there's just not a lot of open seats. That's the simplest way to put it. Right. And if there is, you got to kind of figure out and weigh your options. But yeah, nothing that was, super crazy happened after that. I kind of immediately figured that I was going to have to put together something back for myself. And so basically after Charlotte, even a little bit before that, we were kind of already eyeballing that route. So for me, it wasn't like a huge letdown or anything. And, my phone just didn't ring at all. I just kind of figured that, like with where the sport's at, no matter what, I wanted to have that going for myself to make sure I had a seat. You know what I mean? Let's see. Question here. Hey, Tanner, do you have any tips for me doing mini dwarf car track racing? I wish my buddy Bennett was here because he could give you some good tips. But for dwarf cars, I ran them one time and you sit like this, right? And you kind of feel like you sit kind of far away from the wheel, or maybe the wheel was like this. Anyway, maybe you're really close to it. It's kind of like the wheels right here. And yeah, long story short, they're not super twitchy, but they have a little bit of it to them. I think the weirdest thing was having to shift because I was just used to the direct drive. So I shifted and I kind of, revved it a little high, got going, and, it felt like it wasn't super bad until you had to turn to get in the corner. And then I just was never able to trust it enough. I needed to drive it harder. Actually, like since I was driving it easier, it made it more difficult to not spin out, basically. Like if I would have just drove it in hard, the car would have rotated, it would have been set, it would have been going on what would be on the coils. and it would have been fine. But for me, I kind of lifted and then I got tight, then I would get loose and I'd be back and forth, and then I spun out. So my advice, take it kind of slow for the first lap, but then get rolling. And if you can drive it, drive that thing hard and you'll be good to go. So I enjoy driving the Dwarf car. Paul said, what's your plan for staying mentally sound running these midweek shows with high limit? It can add a lot of stress to the schedule. Yeah, it can. The good part for us is I think no matter what, we're not committed to nothing. So we can run what we want to run, and we can, if we did not want to show up, I guess, to something, we technically don't have to, right? So that's kind of the cool part for us. I think I actually like having the midweek shows. I think it's going to keep us busy. One thing I noticed at the end of the Outlaw schedule kind of that I ran was, you would run, right? And then we would fly home. Not every weekend we did, but sometimes when we were flying home, and then you're home for a couple days, and that was nice. And then you go back, and that was all good. But if there was just one or two shows in between, or if there was just one, it kind of, I don't know, it would have just made more, it obviously would have made sense. You would stay there, and it would have just kind of made the time go by faster. So I actually like, I think, having the midweek shows, because it's going to give us 2 days off. You're going to have Sunday, Monday off most times, and then you'll have Wednesday and Thursday off before you get back going Friday. So you kind of have 2 days on each side, plenty of time to regroup. But yeah, don't get me wrong, it does add a lot. I just think for us, when we're going out there, we're trying to run as many races as possible. So we're like big double thumbs up. We're pumped about that, because then we're not sitting out there for 4 or 5 days when it feels like you could be at home. And you're like, we're not going to go home, especially now that we have our own equipment. But you know what I mean? Like, you kind of feel like, man, it feels like you could be getting something done at home. Like, by the time you maintenance and you're done by Monday, if everything's good, you feel like you have some days of really nothing. So those midweek shows will really help fill that time. Let's see. Brad said, any tips for my sport compact racing starting this summer? Ooh, that's a good one. I've never driven a sport compact. I tell you this, I want to. They look like a blast. So one of these days I'll give it a shot. But I guess probably just try to stay out of the carnage. I've seen a lot of bumping and beating around and spinning out and crashes and guys losing tires. And some of my best races I've ever watched have been in a sport compact shows. So yeah, it is my best advice would be just go out there and keep your stuff in one piece. Paul had mentioned again with the midweek shows being 20,000 to win, it'll definitely help make it worth it. Absolutely. Yeah, no, those bigger paying midweek shows are huge. We, you need those. You need those big shows. Obviously if guys are winning that, that's a nice midweek payday and helps you carry throughout the season. So I do appreciate what High Limit's doing. I appreciate what the Outlaws are doing. My kind of viewpoint on the whole thing, like, I think we're just going to see how it all plays out, right? And I don't think necessarily one's right or wrong or this or that. It's just, like, let's just see what happens. And we're going to support both, of course, because we just want to race as much as we can. But yeah, it's just two different ways of doing it, right? The one thing I'll say, just because it does annoy me, is you get all these people, we all do it. We all complain at some point, right? But all these people are just like, get on, social. A lot of times I see it on Twitter, and they're just saying this or saying that, right, about this or that or High Limit or Outlaws. And I'm like, man, just let it play out. Like, let's just see what happens. Like, let's not crucify one side or the other. Let's just, it's a great time in sprint car racing. We're very thankful that we get this many races where we have more money than ever. And if it ends up being a good or a bad thing, then we'll find out, how that all rolls. But my main thing is we're just kind of sitting from the outside looking in, and we're going to take it on and, make the most of it. So looks like we just had a donation, Charles Reed, for $100. Charles, thank you so much. That is more than generous, donating $100 to the live stream. Thank you so much. Let's see. Brian said, are you heading over to the East Coast this year? Yes. So our plan is to head all the way out to Eldora. And then, when we're out there, like I said, our schedules do change and stuff. Doesn't mean that we might not end up in Pennsylvania, or we might not end up at another racetrack, but we are going to be pretty far out that way come later in the season. Kevin said, Tanner, what made you get into racing and what made you get into sprint cars? So I got into outlaw karts because of my dad and my dad's friend, who actually convinced him when he was at a client's to purchase the outlaw kart that he had for sale. We started racing out here at the local track, Southern Oregon Speedway. And from there, somehow we just did it for the rest of our lives. It's the craziest thing. My dad didn't race. My mom didn't race. Carly got into racing because of kind of what, obviously what I was doing. My older sister got into it after I started too. Not necessarily because of me, but just, right? That's just how it goes. When one does it, you all give it a shot. And so, yeah, so we just kind of gave it a shot and had a lot of fun doing it. And then got into sprint cars in 2017 when, let's see, it was, we kind of just knew we wanted to go that way. So we started talking to some people in our area, found a car for sale, purchased it, and just knew that that was the next step because the limited class, which was kind of like a starter class, was starting to take off. So that was a big deal. And we got into that. And then, all of a sudden now we're sprint car racers, and you just start, one thing leads to the next, the people you meet to this or that. And then all of a sudden, like, you're so far invested in it, you don't know how you could ever find a way out. So, we had Jack joined as a channel member. Wanted to give you a shout out to you. Thank you so much for supporting our team. That helps us get up and down the road. Let's see. Brad says, what is your favorite track with the Outlaws last year and your favorite track on this year's calendar? So I would say last year my favorite track that we went to was probably Sharon. Sharon was a really good time, and Jackson was good. Port Royal, those were probably my top three. As I said earlier in the stream, it's always nice to go to places that you run well at, right? But Sharon's always a fun one. Every time I go there, I feel like I just get naturally really excited. And I've only been there twice, but the second time I went there, I knew it was going to be a good night. And then we just qualified well. We got through our heat. We drew good in the dash, which helped a lot. But the whole race, we kind of stayed in contention. And that's, not easy to do in an Outlaw show. So our car was really good, which, helped make that happen as well. Let's see. Mark said, what is my favorite overall track in a sprint car? I would say favorite place to run normally would be out here. Always enjoy getting to Skagit. A place that is really fun that we don't get to run as often is Willamette. That place is really good up in Oregon. We have that on the schedule this year in the 410. There's actually a lot of great tracks out here. Honestly, a lot of places in general can race well. It just depends on how they get prepped and how the night shakes out, right? You know what I mean? Like, got to have enough water, got to have enough, or got to have, not enough water. Like, it just depends on the material. The sun's got to be out, or, we got to have an overcast day. Like, there's so many factors that go into having a good racetrack in a well-prepped and maintained place. Like, there's just, like, the art of track prep is actually amazing to me. And one day I want to prep a racetrack regularly, part because I feel like in my head, I feel like I would be good at it. And I know that I would start doing it and then realize that all along I was, maybe had the right ideas, but I was wrong. Like, it's way harder than most of us think. I think it's easy for us to criticize the track prep people pretty fast. And that's wrong because they have the toughest job. But I just want to do it one day because I want to see, like, if some of my thoughts and ideas, and I feel like a lot of times I look at a situation a little differently than other people. I'll be like, this is what I think they need to do. And people kind of look at me and, like, they just kind of agree, but maybe they don't actually think that. So I don't know. I just always feel like I have kind of off the wall ideas that, I just always wonder if a track prep person listened to me, like, maybe it would work. Maybe it wouldn't, though. That's how it goes. Working in lap traffic says I live 2 miles from Sharon Speedway. That is a great place to live 2 miles from. I wish I lived 2 miles from Sharon. Tristan said, do you prefer bull ring track types or banging the board track types? I feel like those can actually be similar. For me, I actually like a nice 1/3 mile, slick all the way to the wall, kind of slow. You can kind of run anywhere. I'm not really into the massive cushions. It's not a bad thing. But for me, like, I don't mind if it's kind of like you can just run all over the track, and, whoever has the best setup and also, has the best right foot and can really keep their car in a very small window, where it's loaded, you're on the throttle, you're using a little bit of brake, you're keeping the tires underneath you. Like, that's a big deal. So I think, kind of all those considered is my favorite thing. Brian said, I apologize, Tanner. I've been out of the loop for a while. You're running with Bobby Allen again this year. Unfortunately, I'm not. Wish Shark Racing all the best, though. It's funny. I talked to Bobby a good amount, and all the crew guys, and, Logan and Jake, I'm sure, are going to do really good things this year. Unfortunately, though, I'm not, rejoining them, but I will see them in Texas in a couple of weeks. Let's see. Hey, Tanner, amazing job you've done. How are you on crew members for the upcoming tour? So right now I'm working on that a little bit, but I do have some help when when I'm heading to Texas. So that's going to be really nice. We'll definitely have some extra hands. Part of what I told you guys earlier when you talk about, forming a team is you got to have the manpower. You got to have the expertise on that side, but you also got to have the manpower just to do some of the oddball jobs, like washing the car, dismounting tires, going through and making sure everything's clean, presentable, like all that is part of the workload you have. And so it's important to have, people for that. That's why you see the successful teams going up and down the road. They have, 3 guys, most times, maybe even 4, or they have 3 in a part-time or 3 in a guy at the shop. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of help there. And so that's why you see the big teams, they evenly distribute that workload. Tanner, would you ever run a car in Australia the off season, like at the Classic? Absolutely. That is on my bucket list. I would love to make that happen. I would love to get in a good car and go over there. The tracks over there look interesting, but I feel like I would probably adapt quickly just because they kind of remind me of the West Coast. You know what I mean? Because they seem like they're sticky some nights and rough, and there can be a cushion, or everyone drives really, really hard, it seems like. So very similar to what we're used to. Noah said, "Hey Tanner, you probably don't remember me, but I was the kid who bought Carly's wing at the 2024 manufacturer's throwdown. We're having issues fitting it. Any tips?" Ooh, you might have to adjust. I don't know if you have different wing rails. That wing rail, though, that might not fit on the wing rails you have. So you might have to either drill holes or maybe figure out another solution. Outlaw carts. There's a couple of different manufacturers, and obviously sometimes things don't always fit. Into what the other one makes, if that makes sense, right? Marie said, "Any thoughts on running the Sprinter on pavement?" I've not thought about that before, but I would love to. It's one of those things that I think would be a good time. We just don't have anything like that around here. I always kind of wish we did a little bit more. I kind of brought up the Silver Crown thing, which I know is a little different, but Silver Crown cars are really awesome to watch, and not just on dirt, right? Like they're very impressive to watch on pavement. And I think there's an art to pavement racing. I've kind of always looked up, I feel like, to like a Cody Swanson or someone like that. Like what they have done is incredible. And it's because they're really, really good race car drivers. So there's a lot of people that, really do good work over there. So let's see. Ron said, "This is a great question. With your tenure, he called it apprenticeship at Shark Racing, how has it changed what you bring in the hauler?" So it doesn't really change what I bring, but it was unique to see obviously how those guys have done it. I believe that the trailer that I was using, that we were fielding the 1A, 1T out of last year, like that thing should be in the Sprint Car Hall of Fame. If you guys could have saw how it was built, it was so impressive. The amount of equipment that it could hold. Shoot, I think it could hold 6 top wings. We probably had 4 nose wings in there. I feel like at least 4 front axles, 3 or 4 rear ends, a spare car, had 2 different tire racks. So we had like used tires on one rack and then all the mounted tires on another rack. And there was no cabinets in it. So like what Bobby did with this trailer was super impressive, and he built it all himself. So, I mean, there was just about everything. There was a little area for, my driver area. There was another area for a toolbox. Then we had even some stuff up in the loft where there was just a lot of miscellaneous. There was another toolbox up there. So there was all sorts of stuff, all sorts of equipment that you can imagine, and everything needed to go chase the World of Outlaw Tour. There was 3 engine spots, so you could carry a total of 5 engines, technically, 3 on the ground, 1 in your car, and 1 in your car upstairs if you really wanted. So yeah, they did all sorts of cool stuff. Like I said, everybody needs to see what that trailer looks like because it's very impressive, and it's definitely a very good way to go. When you're trying to make it, and those guys, doing it on a budget. Ooh, this is good. I guess maybe some of you guys might know, some of you guys might not. But next week there was a question here about diecasts. Next week, our 2024 car, which will be released, the day that we release it, the day the diecasts come out. So we will have diecasts for this year's car. I'm really excited about that. That's actually like one of the things that probably in racing you I don't want to call it a dream, I guess, but it's cool. Like you're going to have, to have diecasts of our car. So this year you will be able to order THR diecasts. They're limited, but we're going to order a bunch of the small ones. And then we have just a handful of the bigger scale. What is it? 1/18 scale. They're impressive. So I'm pretty excited about that. Charles says, do you see yourself in NASCAR someday? I actually do, but not how everyone else would probably say, right? So like I feel like my my opportunity of being a NASCAR driver ever is probably basically zero, right? Like you just kind of have to, things have to go your way. You usually have to get in at a little bit of a younger age, but I do think it's possible if you could acquire the right sponsorship to run a truck race, or if you could acquire enough sponsorship to run a couple truck races to where you could get a license, because that's I think how it all works, right? You have to get like approved. I would love one day to try to qualify for the Daytona 500, whatever that took. If you could get the right person to help fund it, because, that's how the sport works, right? In asphalt racing, for sure, if you can get the right funding, like anybody can get to that step. You just have to get through the approval process. So I'd love to run Daytona, because I think drafting and just doing it's the Daytona 500. It's a great American race. It's one of the coolest events in all the world. So yeah, that's my goal one day. That's how I see myself, I want to just say I did it. And so that's kind of what I want to do. So I don't ever see myself being a full-time NASCAR driver, though. I think that my time, unfortunately, for that is probably gone, just because of how the sport works. And, that's how it is. That's how it is for 99% of people. Richard said, what's your favorite track food? That's easy. French fries anywhere. I love French fries. That's kind of the go-to. It's kind of an easy, quick snack. It's not too filling. Tyler said, will you do Outlaws or High Limits Tour full-time in 2025? I don't have an answer to that question, but what I will tell you is my goal is to build up my team this year to where hopefully I'm full-time on the road in 2025. If everything went perfect, things were right, everything was there, that would be my goal. That's talking in a perfect world tense, though, but I do think it's possible. Bo said, are you going to wrap the merch trailer? I think right now my plan is just to put stickers on it. Maybe down the line we will do that, but we're kind of, like I said, that's still a project and a thing that we're going to be working on a bunch. I do really, though, want to, I want to deck the thing out. This is a very nice trailer. We're very lucky to have it. And so we're going to definitely personalize it so that it's us, rolling up and down the road. Noah said, have you tried micros on iRacing? If so, what do you think of them? I did get a chance to try them, and I thought they were interesting, right? Like they were a little harder to drive than I anticipated, but they were still really fun. The non-wing was a little more difficult to not spin out, which I kind of figured. Once I kind of got going, I felt okay. Millbridge was a little tougher just because it felt so tight. Where I ran them at Tulsa, I felt good there, actually, and I thought they raced good. So I actually have a piece of content that I'm working on right now around that to kind of do like a nostalgic video from iRacing, because that's obviously the content we used to post. So, at one point, so I'm working on that. That should come out here soon. Scratch said, what's your to-go order at In-N-Out? So to go, I'll roll up to the thing. I'll get a number one with no tomatoes, with extra crispy fries. And then, if I'm just like, don't care, then I'll get a chocolate shake, or I'll just get a water. Usually how I go. So, but you have to get the fries extra crispy. If you've never been to In-N-Out, or if you go to In-N-Out, you never got the fries extra crispy. If you like crunchy, doesn't get any better than that. It's actually incredible. DB Snyder said, Tanner, do you see yourself racing in the Northeast? You are from upstate New York. Great area. I want to go to New York. I've never been to New York one day. We were really close when we were out there in Pennsylvania. I don't have it on my schedule this year, but it's one of those situations. It doesn't mean that it can't happen. I know High Limit travels up there. I don't know if it's on the Outlaw schedule anywhere in New York. I know like they would go to Weed Sport and some of those other places, but I do want to go to Weed Sport. That place looks like a blast. I mean, like we ran good at Sharon, so I feel like Weed Sport, maybe it's not similar, but it just seems like it's so slick. You would think that some of that would, carry over. I would think, but one of these days we'll definitely get up there. And I think if I get that far, then I got to look at going to Canada, because like I was saying in my Facebook live stream yesterday, we were pitted right next to the Glenn Stires Racing guys at at Chili Bowl, and it was interesting them talk about Osh Weekend and some of the other stuff going on up there. It's like, man, I just need to get to that whole area, get to see New York, get to see Canada, all that stuff would be really fun. Let's see. Chris Cox Gaming says, do you like Casey's Pizza? Casey's Pizza is very good. We always love stopping at Casey's, of course, when we're there in Knoxville. It's kind of hard to beat. Noah Jones says, are you going to run Cam Cartway in Rome, Texas this year at some point, or try to? I don't think I'm going to make it to Cam to race, but I know that I'll be very close. So maybe if I'm in the area while you guys are racing or whatever, definitely stop in, check out, make an appearance. Cam looks like one of the more fun outdoor tracks in outlaw kart racing. I know there's a lot of kids that come through there that go on to do, bigger and better things. So that's very neat. Tyler said, would you do part or all of PA Speed Week, even though it's not on your tentative schedule? Yes, that is, always a possibility. That was, that's an area I don't have any races. So depending on how things go, like I would like to, be cool to catch at least the end of it, right? Because I'm trying to think. Then after that, we go to Knoxville or whatever. But it'd be cool to hit because Port Royal. I haven't been to Lincoln, but I really want to get there. Williams Grove's an interesting one for sure. Very tough racetrack, very tight. People ask what I thought of Williams Grove, and here's how I describe it. Williams Grove is like the longest straightaway you've ever seen in your life, and it's like you're driving to a stop sign because it's flat and it's a tight turn, especially into 3. You're like, man, is my car really gonna stick? Is it really gonna make it, or is it just gonna fly into the wall? And when you're racing with cars, like, man, guys that like lift to run the bottom and guys that shoot in to run the top, like sometimes it's the exact same speed, but what you have to do to accomplish your line you're running is pretty crazy. So when you're behind cars, you have to be really careful because you catch up to someone real quick, or you could catch a wheel, or get someone in the back bumper. Because like I said, you're racing to a stop sign. Like you're going as fast as you can down the straightaway. You're super winged over, and then you go in the corner, and you have to stop, and you really nose down. And a lot of being good there is keeping your car very stable, because it's easy to get unstable when you're changing speeds so quickly like that. Chevy says you'll love Osh Weekend. Glenn Stires has built an amazing track. Yeah, I've seen some really cool videos from up there. Definitely want to get up that way. Looks like it's just slick and wide and slow, and you see guys, like I said, driving right through the middle. Wings are way back in the trunk. That's how we like to see it. So Noah said, are you going to run the Kart Nationals in Iowa again this year? I'm not sure. I'm not sure yet. I know. I think QRC is going to be back there again. It just depends if we end up running Oskaloosa or if we're just going to kind of stay close to Knoxville. We're also Nationals this year. I think we want to, we're going to go a little bigger with maybe some of our appearance. So we're also going to be working on that. So I think a lot of it just depends on time and, some of the things we'll be doing with that. Mini Elvis says, how do I start racing? Well, first, what you want to do, people always ask that, how do I start racing? How do I get into dirt racing? What do I do? I think the main thing you got to, in dirt racing, in racing in general, you got to figure out what's going on in your area. You're not, if you don't have outlaw carts in your area, you're not going to go buy an outlaw cart. If you don't have micros in your area, you shouldn't go buy a micro. You need to see what's going on in your area and what makes the most sense for the budget that you have. And, the costs and the travel and your schedule, if you're working, if you're not working, if you're going to school. So I think a lot of it is just, like I said, what's going on in your area. And then what I would do is I would, start going to those races, even if you don't have a car, right? Like go there, introduce yourself to some people, talk about how you do want to get involved in the sport. And you want to do, you want to figure out how to drive. And you never know, you might meet someone that will, mentor you or let you just hang out in their pit. Even if you just get to stand back from a distance and watch how they work, the ins and outs of the cars, how to scrape, you can scrape mud, you can do all that. That's very important to do because, what are you going to do if you get your own car and then you don't know how to do anything on it? So I think it's important to go to the races and just see how the races work, how people are working on cars, what they're doing, try to learn anything you can. And then I would also know who the manufacturers are of the cars that you're going to be purchasing. I would, so who you can buy if you wanted to buy new parts. And then I would also get in Facebook groups and, that kind of thing. So then when new cars are popping up, people are posting about them, you can jump on one. Or like I said, just by meeting connections at the track, you might get pointed in the right direction. Like, hey, so-and-so over there is going to be selling his car at the end of the season, or this guy's going to have a roller. You can get an engine here or there, whatever the case may be. So kind of a long process. And I know that might sound confusing, but it's really not easy to get involved in the sport. You have to put yourself out there. And if you really want it badly, you got to maybe get a little uncomfortable. And that, like I said, that sounds crazy, but you would be surprised how many people wouldn't mind, having a little extra help. Like I said, in any way, just if it's a little bit of manpower, and in return, they teach you a little bit. That's actually what happened to us. We met some people at the races when we went, and then we became friends with them. Then we parked next to them, and then all of a sudden it was over. So, and then we're friends for life. Brian said, Tanner, I'm going to put you on the spot. All races you ran so far, what was the most memorable? Ooh, most memorable win. So, I mean, maybe not the most memorable, but definitely our big Outlaw Kart win recently for 10 grand was big, because that was a big event. It was kind of a unique deal. I never had won that much money. I hate how that sounds, but like seriously, like I never won an event that paid that much. So that was a big deal, right? It is kind of like your first, I think every driver remembers the night they cashed in the biggest, you would say, right? So for me, that was huge. I think my first sprint car win at Skagit, when I won up there, was a big deal because I ran a really good race. I ran a hard race. I had beaten Trace Starks. Me and him kind of went at it, and he was really good. He's a phenomenal race car driver. So I think the nights where you beat guys and you're right there. And there was even some nights for me that have been memorable that I didn't win. That like the nights that were what it could have been, right? I think of Skagit, where we won, like quick time, won the heat and won the dash, and then ran fourth in the feature with the Outlaws in September. Like a night like that, right? Because if I would have won the A, then all of a sudden you have a perfect night. So we were really close. But even other nights, like I said, are more, like you just think of moments, when we started 16th at Port Royal and we finished 9th. Like that's not flashy at all, but like I just was running some really good laps and my car looked really good. And I had, never been to Port Royal before that weekend, and I was bouncing off the fence. So I don't know, to me, like sometimes you always gauge it a little bit differently. But obviously in terms of wins, like our High Desert Hustle victory, and then there was a couple other sprint car shows. Winning the first night of the Marvin Smith this last year was cool. Anytime we win out locally here at the Southern Oregon Speedway, any local wins always mean a lot too, just, because that's the area I'm from. And especially as I started traveling more, when I come back here and run good in front of like all these people that, kind of watched our team grow up, that means a lot. Let's see. Mad Cow Mark said, I'm late. Could you start the vlog again? Hey, you're not too late. We're still digging. We're 45 minutes in. I hope you guys are all having a great Thursday. I appreciate you. We've had a great viewer count, a lot of people tuning in. Keep the questions rolling. Like I said, what's great about the season that we have coming up is, with all the traveling, we're going to get to see a lot of you guys all across the country. And that makes me really excited. Getting to see, the great fans we have, the community, especially as how far things have come. And that's not just because of any one thing, right? Like that's a total team effort on our side and a team effort on your guys' side. And I'm very thankful for that. Without your guys' support, like we would not be where we are today. And I know a lot of people say that and this and that, and maybe sounds corny, but that's very true. Our team and stuff, we definitely would not be doing what we're doing if we didn't have, so many of you great people on the other side, and great partners and great relationships, and, all sorts of stuff. So yeah, it's going to be a great year. It's going to be a great year. Like I said, definitely keep the questions coming. You guys can hit me with just about anything. I will answer it. You can hit me with the tough questions. You can hit me with the easy ones. I'm usually pretty decent on the spot. Mobler said, if you do PA Speed Week, would you run Grandview? I would definitely run Grandview. Grandview looks like a fun time. I know, I think, Larson and a couple of those guys say Grandview is their favorite place in PA. So I think there's definitely an intriguing, something intriguing about it. Seems like it always gets a few less cars. I don't know if that's maybe because it's on the other side of the state, but definitely wouldn't mind getting over there. Let's see. Max, anything planned with Shark Racing this year? Unfortunately, no. As I had said earlier in the stream, still great friends with all those guys. Talk to Bobby quite often, and we will see them when we go to Texas. So I'm sure you'll see us pitted either right next to them or very close. All the Shark Racing guys are great people. Michael Jr., what is your go-to pre-race song? So that's a good one. I actually have a playlist. I'm not going to share what my playlist is. I don't know what it is about sharing what music you listen to, but it always feels like either you could get made fun of or people will be like, that's awesome. But I actually, part of also why I'm not sharing this, because I really don't. I'm hit or miss. Sometimes I do it often. Sometimes I don't. at the end of last year, I feel like I tried to do it a little bit more just because, just trying to do anything to just really get zoned in and ready to go. And sometimes listening to music can do that for you. Williams Racing said, do you plan on running Ohio Speed Week in 2025? I don't know anything about 2025 yet, but I think that this year, the plan, I don't have Ohio Speed Week on the schedule, but if for some reason we're out in the Midwest and we're not at home during that time, then Ohio Speed Week will be the place to be. Tyler Cool Guy said, tip next time when you go to PA, watch out for Billy Dietrich. He may try to get you in a YouTube video, but looking forward to watching when I can. Yeah, Billy's been creating a lot of great content. I know he does a lot of cool stuff out there in Pennsylvania, and we need that in the sport. So I'll have to, if he doesn't swing by my pit, I might have to jump in a video. Mike said, what's one thing you took away from running with the Outlaws? Well, I took away a lot of stuff. I think for me, it's going to be more interesting actually the next time I don't run an Outlaw show or a high limit show. They're kind of this, obviously the same concept. So for me, I feel like nothing's going to feel really different until I probably get back from this first trip, and I'm not running, if we're out here and we run a KWS show, or if we run a big 360 race or whatever it may be, or Skagit Weekly, you don't realize how intense a competition is until you go and do something different. Right? Because you're so used to that grind of it. And that's how the Outlaws were, even though it was only 25 nights, like every night was just, I don't want to say like super stressful or this or that, but it's just like, man, there's definitely that intense factor in the atmosphere at these shows. Like you can feel it. It's pretty nuts. And so, I think for me, it's just, you don't realize at the level that you're actually racing at, even as yourself, even when things aren't going good. And so like for me, I was like, man, some of it is, man, I'm just putting my best foot forward, and some of this is just going to be part of the process. And so you just have to be okay with that, and you have to be comfortable with that. And that's totally how it goes. Let's see. Kale said, hey, Tanner, have you ever thought about running a track in Idaho? Kale, if there's any dirt tracks up there, I would actually love to come. I know that there was one that they were trying to build that I think ended up turning into an asphalt track, but Idaho's close. So I would definitely like to some point. Chevy said, is your family team going to make safety changes in front of the carts to prevent Carly's accident from happening again? A bar around the feet or something? Oh, yeah. You're talking about the carts. Yeah, I think this is definitely being looked into. It's kind of difficult. The cart deal, as much as you would love to put something there, I don't really know what the answer is. We've kind of talked about it. I think that, her having a fiberglass hood maybe over a carbon fiber hood maybe hurt her. But man, for the most part, like I feel like, I'm not saying there's nothing you can do, but there definitely has to be something that's well designed, because we said if you put a bar there, let's say, and the bar breaks, then all of a sudden the bar is smashing your foot. So what's really the difference? We always joke that we would call it the Carly bar, but something in some way that maybe has some give, but also has some strength to not end up just being part of the problem. So I do think, though, like I said, a fiberglass hood kind of comes apart much faster than a carbon fiber hood. Maybe that would have really helped absorb the impact, and maybe it wouldn't have broke her foot, or maybe it would have tossed the car one way or the other when it tried to break it. Adrian said, was Bobby Gladden, thank you for taking care of his equipment. I think you finished with the same wing really great to jump on that train and succeed. Yeah, I think those guys, I think in general it was a great thing for both of us. Like you said, we had a great stretch of races, didn't go through too much stuff. Everything really worked out. And I think that was definitely what those guys wanted. That's what I wanted. Of course, you always want the best results possible. So basically, if I didn't win every single night, I would have wanted more. But that's how it goes. So I think everything was really, really great on that deal. Oh, I told you guys to ask the tough questions. What type of arm restraints do you use? The reason this is a tough question, I don't run arm restraints, and I actually, I'm okay totally saying that. I don't know if I'm not sold on them. I think that they can maybe cause more harm than good. Like I said, it's a good concept. It's just, I don't know. I know guys getting them stuck in their belts, and their belts popping off, or in carts, them getting stuck in the chain. One of the kids I grew up racing with, he kind of got like half his arm ripped off with that, or not ripped off, but tore apart. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm not sold on the arm restraint deal. Mason said, are you going to Sharon Speedway in 2024? Right now, we don't have it on the schedule, but doesn't mean that we might not end up there. Brad says, favorite track that you have ran in your career? Favorite track I've ran in my whole entire career. I think as far as I talk about just like, man, the wow factor and like, it's hard to beat the place. It's Knoxville Raceway, hands down. Every time I've been there, it's just, doesn't matter if it was the weekly shows or if it was nationals, just the vibe, man, it's hard to beat. And then when you look around, you see 25,000 people. It's unbelievable. All Gas Racing said, "Hey Tanner, I drive mods. I'm trying to grow my channel. Any suggestions?" Hey man, main thing, stay consistent, post a lot, keep people updated. Try to grow all your platforms. And realistically, if you do really want to grow, you got to it takes a lot, man. It takes a lot of effort. And unfortunately, kind of like it's like having a full-time job, man. Like you got to stay on top of it. You got to create as much content. But the main thing too is just be true to who you are. Be true to who you are and what you do, and show how much you love racing and all those things. I think people really like that. People want to watch, and I do too. Maybe not as much. Like for me, it's funny. I don't really watch racing content because I live in the racing world, so I usually am trying to escape. But like obviously the creators I watch, like good, genuine people that love what they do, and whatever. Like for example, there's this channel. The guy has millions of subscribers, but he goes and metal detects in rivers. Like literally goes in rivers, turns rocks over, finds phones, and I don't know, maybe it's fake, I don't know, but finds phones and finds all sorts of cool stuff. And like I think that's the greatest thing ever. And the guy seems genuine, and I feel like we could go to lunch and it'd be awesome. So like what I mean? Like that's what I gravitate towards. I think that's what most people do the same. So be true to who you are, show your love for the sport. Murray said, "Do you ever get nervous prior to getting pushed off?" I do. Yeah, I feel like though by the time I'm in staging, it's not too bad. I'm more nervous. I'm more nervous like now, like here in my shop. I know that sounds crazy, but you're like more thinking about like, man, I want things to go good and this and that. And then I think if a night is going well enough to where you're consistently up front, so like for example, I get way more nervous for a heat race than I would ever get for a main event, if that makes sense. So like that's kind of how I roll there. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still get nervous. But man, like a heat race is nothing like a heat race. When you start on the pole or you start second, you got to run top 2 or you got to run top 5, because there's nothing worse than starting on the front row of a heat and going backwards. And that also makes or break your night. So like I feel like at least when you get to the show and you start up front, it's like, all right, we did all we could to get to here. Whatever happens, happens. So for me, main events aren't as nerve-wracking. I'm more like in dashes too, because dashes usually don't. I mean, they do matter. They do matter. Don't get me wrong. No one wants to lose spots in a dash either, but a little bit low stress. It's your heat race that is literally everything. Let's see. DB Snyder, what is your number one racing goal for 2024? Man, my thing, win my first 410 show and, try to win a couple. I'd like to, be nice to win 3 or 4 races this year. Obviously, of course, want to get my first Outlaw or high limit win, whatever one came first, right? But yeah, that's definitely when we're talking goals. Win my first 410 race. There's a couple big races I have on my schedule. I mean, every night's a big night for me, but I think of all those fastest 5 days in motorsports coming up through the Northwest, Southern Oregon Speedway, Roseburg, Cottage Grove, Willamette, Grays Harbor. All 5 of those nights are scheduled multiple times because those are races that we can do really well at. Every night we can do well at, but right, those are backyard. A lot of partners in the area, races that we can definitely go and be in win, and then Dirt Cup right after that. So we got 8 races there, big nights. The final show pays $62,000 to win. So there's a lot of money that week up for grabs. And then of course I think of Knoxville again. Knoxville, no brainer. Skagit Nationals for $100,000. That's going to be a big one. The Dennis Roth Classic for 83. That's another big one. And then if I think of a little bit earlier in the year, I think getting to those races at Knoxville is going to be crucial to hopefully get some laps. Hopefully the weather doesn't interfere with some of that there at the end of April. Another big night for us is going to be Texas Motor Speedway on April. I think it's April 13th. We have a big partner this year down in Texas, the Boss Big Box store. So they're going to be on the side of our car. That's their home area. So that's a big race for us because that's a big race for them. And so, we're excited to represent them down there, and we'll have more info on that this next week. But all you guys here on the live stream got a little inside scoop. So you'll see the car reveal. But we're going to be doing some activities and stuff down there. Really excited, like I said, to represent them. And their locations, they have a couple locations in Texas, but one is like within a half hour of the track. So, I mean, shoot, it's going to be a big deal. And Texas Motor Speedway on NASCAR weekend, April 13th is a big deal. So Fizz Twin says, who will you have run the merch trail a lot of times since you will most likely be busy? Probably my mom is probably going to run it as much as possible, and as we go, we'll figure that out too. If we need to get someone else just to run it for the night or figure it out. Mad Cow Mark's heading out. See ya, Mark. Let's see. Austin said, "Are you going to the high limit races at Lakeside?" The plan is to be there on the 3rd and 4th of May. Right now, at least that's what we have on the schedule. Eric said, "Do you feel like you have a better chance to win with the Outlaws or high limit driving for Shark than in your own equipment?" And that's a great question. Honestly, I don't really know. I would have liked to have ran all those Outlaw races I was supposed to run on the West Coast in my own car this last year, only in the sense of not necessarily over the Shark car, but it'd have been nice like if we could have ran all those races in the Shark car and then we hit a rewind button and then I went and ran in my own car just to see what it felt like, because I felt like we made such big strides at the end of our Midwest swing, and I think a lot of that reflected when I hopped in the Shark car and things kind of went good at some of those places, because I think my confidence was just up and like things just really clicked. So I don't think it's necessarily a one or the other deal. One's going to be better, especially now our packages are going to be a little bit similar. So I think really it's just going to come down to having a great night and things going your way, things not going your way, whatever the case may be. But I think both cars are more than capable of getting the job done. Someone said Huset's has monster payouts this year. I know Huset's did do a good job. I know that they're on top of Dirt Cup and we're at Dirt Cup, but they definitely they did a great job. Obviously they have the High Bank Nationals and stuff like that, and I'm disappointed that I'm not able to be at those. But it's really cool what they're doing, and that there's money in multiple places right throughout the year. Like you can go one or the other, and chase a big payday. Let's see. Jesse said, "Is the Trackside Experience coming back for 2024? Yes, it is. If you guys are interested in helping at any of the races we go to with our social media or with filming, I don't have the link in the description now, but the THR Trackside Experience, usually it's in every bio of all my YouTube videos, or you can just go to our Facebook page and send us a message of what race you would like to participate in, get you on the schedule. We are definitely going to be doing that. Very nice, obviously, to include our fans and help making the content that you guys see. And it's just a great opportunity. I know it's really cool. Not taking actually all credit to them. Like we had some people this last year do the Trackside Experience that now are literally going to school for that or going to college, and they want to do more filming and more video editing and stuff. And it's really awesome. And then also we make friends for life in the areas that we're in. Some of my closest friends now are because of the Trackside Experience and them just helping me hold the camera for a couple hours to record. Let's see. Make sure you guys keep popping in the questions here as we just close in over an hour. I appreciate you guys all hanging out again here on this Thursday. It's been a lot of fun. Carly's not here anymore. I just looked up. Carly was in the shop. She just got done building. We were stocking the trailer with some parts and whatnot. So she had built a front axle, which was our final one we needed to build. And that one's just going to go on the mule. We put all of our other front axles in the trailer. One of the more common things you kind of have to have on hand at the sprint car races, right? Be ready to pop one in, pop one out. It's just 3 bolts, for a radius rod, and then where the shocks, hook up to it. So you unhook the shocks, you unhook those 3 radius rods, and they're all good. You just slide another front axle in. That's why you see guys change those in the hot pit in a hurry. Oh, this is a good one. Someone said, "Have you ever thought about dropping the wing for some shows?" What he means is go non-wing racing. I have thought about it, and I've said I would go non-wing racing if I had the right person helping set up my race car. I don't want to just go do it to try it for the fun of it. I want to go and make sure that my car is going to actually go in a circle good. For most of you guys, as you can probably imagine, when you set up a non-wing car, I don't know how to set up a non-wing car, but what I'm saying is you don't just take the wing off your wing car and go non-wing racing. These guys run different front axles, and I think they sometimes run different bird cages and, of course, different wheel spacing and different offsets. And the list is completely different because you don't have, the giant chunk of metal over your head. Brandon said, "Is your dad going to travel with you?" Yeah, so I think, my family is going to be at a good amount of the races. Doesn't necessarily mean they'll be at every show. It really just depends how it's going to work. But we do have some help where the rig's going to be able to move this year. And we'll be fine. And those guys might be going back and forth a little bit between Southern Oregon and there. Noah said, why doesn't QRC go to the manufacturer's throwdown? So I think actually QRC wants to go to that event. It's kind of a tough time right after the first of the year, to travel all that way out there. And I don't think it's out of the question that one of these years they might make it happen. It's just, it's difficult with weather and stuff to get out that way, traveling down south and through the snow. It's also tough. It's a long 3 days and whatnot, so it takes a big trip. And like I said, right after the first of the year, sometimes that's not always the easiest thing to do, but I know that they've talked about and had intentions and wanting to go in the future. Ooh, Eric said, what is the most difficult part of becoming a public figure? I feel like there's not really a lot, nothing crazy that's difficult for, it's just like anything else, right? If you have a job, like you go to work and you do X, Y, and Z, all this stuff is kind of the same. I'm very lucky, all the perks I have of what I get to do and the people I get to meet, and having a line of people that is wanting to sit in the car or take a picture or buy merchandise. And so all that stuff I don't take for granted. I would say the most difficult part, though, if I had to pinpoint, I will say that everything's always constantly changing, and now more than ever, there's a lot of competition in what we do, in the sense of there's just content everywhere, and not just like dirt racing. That's not even what I mean. I'm just saying there's all sorts of stuff to watch, right? You can go on your phone and you can watch just about anything that you can find. There's TikTok and there's Instagram Reels, and Facebook's got what they're doing, and YouTube's doing the shorts. And so, I mean, there's all sorts of things that take everybody's attention. And trust me, I'm no better. I get stuck on this thing all the time. I try to do my best to put it somewhere where I can't even find it at times. But so yeah, that's probably the most difficult thing, is just just kind of like everything's a grind, right? Just staying in the grind of it, and then also balancing that, along with what we're doing on the racing side of things. Because, my main thing is I want to be the best professional race car driver that I can be, but I also want this to be successful too. So when you kind of have, your 8 octopus arms and you're touching all sorts of stuff and you want it to be successful, it's kind of just trying to keep it all up and do all of it well. And some people can do that, some people can't. I feel like for me, I probably am better when I'm actually working on more things than one. But that's just kind of how I've always rolled. Like I want to work on this, but I also want to be on the race car stuff, and I also want to be, and maybe that's a downfall, maybe it's not, but everyone kind of does it a little bit differently. Ooh, this is a good question worth talking about. Dirt Track All Day said, how come you blame pill draws a lot for poor qualifying? And then kind of, I'd said, do you defeat yourself with the bad pill? So that's a very fair question. And I actually don't feel like that does happen. I think that, depending on, I guess, like if you're seeing a race from all sides, right? So if you're watching on the live stream and you're seeing my video, then you might kind of see both. If you're just watching the video, though, sometimes you might not see obviously how other guys qualify. But in 410 sprint car racing, pill draws are big. They're a big deal. You gotta pull the right pill on certain nights. Now, does that mean that we're always 100% maxing out our potential in qualifying for the position that we're in? No, nobody is, right? But the guys that are doing it more often are, obviously running better. But pill draw is everything. I mean, for example, you go to Knoxville Nationals, 360 Nationals. We qualified well at 360 Nationals, but part of that was because we went out, at a good time. Were we the first car out? No, but we were early enough that, we still had a great racetrack. It hadn't lost a little bit of grip. It hadn't slickened off yet. Where there was some really good cars that went out late that just drew a bad pill, and, they barely cracked the top 15. So there is a real aspect of the pill draw game. And yeah, I do think it is easy to get a little down about having a bad pill draw, but there is some truth to that. It's just like, man, that you're going into the night with a tougher battle. I think back to the Outlaws last year at Skagit. The first night when we qualified good, actually guys qualified good all the way through qualifying for the most part. Then the second and third night we drew, I think we were like the 30th car out of 35 cars, and the track fell off almost a second. Then the next night, maybe it only slowed down, I think like 0.6 of a second or 0.75 of a second. But unless you ripped a perfect lap, you weren't even going to be in the top 10, which then all of a sudden doesn't even put you in the first 2 rows or 3 rows of a heat race or whatever the case may be, depending on where you end up. So I don't know. The pill draw thing is tough. Don't get me wrong. It is easy, I think, to get down about it, but there is a real aspect on, that determines your night. And some nights it screws you. Some nights it puts you as the beneficiary. That's just the sport and how it all works out. You know what I mean? Let's see. Greg Roberts said, any tips for trying to build a fan base on social media? I was kind of touching on this earlier, but man, just post as much as you can, keep people engaged. You know, yeah. My first tip would be to start a Facebook page. If you don't have any platforms at all, Facebook's a great one. Usually most older people are on Facebook. You can post your racing updates. You can invite people to like your page. And then from there, you can branch out, because not everyone does want to create videos and stuff. But Facebook's a great platform. I feel like it's probably the second best behind YouTube for, capturing an audience. And you can post a lot on there, post a lot, keep people informed, post race day stuff, post stuff during the week in the shop. And, if you post the right thing, maybe someone shares it a bunch, and then all of a sudden you get out to a much larger audience. So Facebook's a great platform to use. And that's what I would recommend if you're trying to grow. Mike says, do you think you're ever just being outmotored? I think everybody at some point is outmotored, right? Sometimes we are, sometimes we are. I think our 410 engines run really, really well. And so, I guess, like I said, this year we'll kind of see how things go. I feel like everybody is just so close that, like I said, it comes down to everything just being dead right. And a lot of times too, once the track's slicking off, like unless a racetrack races really fast, then it doesn't necessarily matter, what engine you got, this or that. I mean, don't get me wrong. It does. A 305 or a 360 is not going to beat a 410, but a lot of times guys are literally reducing power with their engines to make them smoother, flatten the curve, and make it to where it puts the rear tires to the ground. Royce Howard says, will you have new merchandise for 2024? Absolutely. I will have new merchandise dropping next week. We have a couple different t-shirts we've worked on. We got diecasts. We got mini wing panels. The day that the car drops is the day that everything will drop at once. It's going to be really awesome. Island Charlie said, no Jackson Nationals this year. I know I don't have Jackson Nationals on the schedule. One of those things, we'll see how it all plays out. Weather could be a factor. Right now we're planning on heading back home, but it doesn't mean that we might not end up being at the Jackson Nationals. So that's definitely a real possibility. Let's see. So on to the next. Let's see. Dirt Track All Day says, name your top 3 point finishers for Outlaws and High Limit. Outlaws will probably be Gravel, Donnie Macedo. I think Donnie's going to have a really good year. I wouldn't actually be surprised if he ends up being the champion. And then on the other side of things, High Limit, probably Brad, Rico. And I think there might be a surprise. Probably Brent. Brent Marks will probably be top 3. Let's go. Yeah, Brad. But wait, I need to even look at the standings now, because even some things are kind of a little more shook up than I would have thought. But it's hard to say. It's hard to say. William Sutton said, when's the podcast coming back? That's funny that you actually say that, because I've talked about bringing the podcast back. I've been thinking about it more than ever lately, because doing something like this, I love to talk. It's great to talk. Oh, that's what scratched. That's who I was thinking of, Sunshine. That's who I was going to bring up. I think Courtney is going to have a really good year. He's obviously been great to start the season, so unless something changes. So if I had to redo the High Limit, I would say Brad, Sunshine, Rico. Ryan said, what's your opinion on cost versus payouts, 360s versus 410, now that a track like Skagit are switching to 305? Ooh, that's a really good question. So it's tough. Like, my opinion on this is probably more unpopular. I think in a perfect world, though, it's great to have 305s and 410s. Like, I think that's a perfect world. Now, unfortunately, because out here on the West Coast, we have so many 360s, I don't think it's probably fair to just abolish them. Well, it's definitely not, because I don't know what are guys going to do with their engines? And then do they have the funding to actually go and get a 410? Most guys might just end up on a 305, right? So it's kind of hard to say, but I don't know. We'll see how the whole thing ends up. Sorry, my thing just glitched. I thought my live stream ended or something. I thought we were having more problems. But I think, long story short, I think the 410 or the 305 is the best way to go. Or you have 410, 305 in a crate motor. I do think you need something that is like a starter sprint car class. I think that is good for the sport. I just think the whole country needs to be on it. And will that ever happen? Absolutely not. But I think the whole entire country needs to have the same rules package, right? In a way, like 410s need to be the same, 305s need to be the same. And if there's crates or whatever case may be, I don't know, just I think that would help costs from getting out of hand a little bit. But then also, like I said, if I had a 305 here, then I could go to the 305 Nationals at that place in Nebraska, whatever it is, right? But since I have a limited, I cannot. See what I'm saying? I think it would just help. And then, down in California where I feel like don't have as many 305s as maybe they could, like maybe they would get more guys traveling out here at the time of the year when you can't run as much in other spots. So I don't know. It's a tough situation, but I just think that if everyone was on a similar package, things would be a lot better. Let's see. Someone asked, Tanner, are you ever going to come to Florida to race? Hopefully next year I'll be in Florida. I would like to start Florida so I can be there in February, get the year kicked off on a good note. Let's see. Dirt Tracking with Chip said, hey, from down under. Tanner, what's up? All my Aussie friends, it's good to see you guys here. Oh, we did get a $5 donation from Uncle Bones. Thank you so much for supporting our team. How is Carly healing up? And then to adjust your ads to 15 seconds less, please. I apologize. I did not know about the advertisement thing. I guess that was popping up during the stream. Carly's healing up good. Carly's doing good. She's got an important appointment I was telling you guys about a little earlier in about 9 or 10 days. So she's going to have that coming up, and we'll kind of figure out what the next step is. But she's going to have physical therapy. She's going to have, just kind of the next 6 to 8 weeks still to kind of recover. And it might end up taking, they say that the recovery is, 3 months after the incident. But with that being said, it could take her, I think, up to like a year to recover fully, right? Even longer than that. People say like, man, I didn't get my strength back in that bone or in that area for a long time. So I think that's going to kind of be her situation. Is she going to be 95% maybe here in 6 or 8 weeks? Probably very well, or 75 or 80%, it could be, very close. But, to fully be 100%, to probably regain, the proper strength in her leg, in her calf, in her foot, it's going to take some serious time. Let's see. A couple people were commenting on the whole limited 410, all my take on that. Yeah, I mean, and the whole thing's tough, right? Like to kind of not to get back on my talking deal here, but it's so hard because what do you do? Like I said, people have 410s, people have 360s, people have limiteds, people have 305s, and some guys have crates. So you don't want to just abolish any of them, even though it feels like that could be the easiest thing to go. But I think that if they were to just come out here and drop the hammer on different people, that people would probably just get out of the sport instead of stay in it, which is not what we want. So it's hard though, but it's difficult too to cater to everyone, because at the same time, like how I look at it is right now we have these couple different classes in Oregon, like, up here they have a different rules package than here in Oregon, and then California has a different, and there's actually 2 different rules packages in California because there's people that are running the crates and 305s. So it's like, man, if everybody was on the same, all of a sudden you'd be like, man, we have a lot of cars. Like we have a lot of people competing, but it doesn't feel like you have a lot of cars because maybe 10 guys are on this and 8 guys are on that package and 15 are on that, and they're all spread out. So it doesn't really matter. But I don't know. That whole deal is just such a difficult conversation. And a lot of people usually really disagree on all of it. So it's hard because I know, at least out here, like I said, people are always telling who's right and who's wrong and this and that. But yeah, I don't know. Austin said, do you have any racing superstitions? I had the chance to race with you at Devil's Pool at the last show they had. Long night for a team. That was a long night, Austin. Racing superstitions. Nothing crazy, man. Nothing crazy for me. Just, I probably really tug on my gloves a lot right before. I always push them up on my wheel as much as possible just to make sure they're on, even though they're not going anywhere. Other than that, it is funny too. Like it's in racing, how all this stuff's happening, but you could have the worst itch of your life right before you're about to go green. So sometimes I'll flip my visor up and then wipe my face or wipe my this or whatever right before I go green, and then slam my visor. So that happens. That's not really a superstition, but that's something that occurs. So that's kind of funny, but that happens. I do the gloves, and I always click my steering wheel right before they push me off. I always make sure it's on there. I just give it that nice click. I don't know why, just do it. Other than that, I'm not really, I feel like, a super superstitious person. I try not to even think about any of that stuff because I feel like that's more in your head than out of your head. But yeah. Jesse said, what track that you go to has the hardest local competition? I think probably Pennsylvania or Knoxville is probably the toughest for 410 stuff. It's hard because out here in California and the West Coast, I would say that we have some of the toughest competition. But how they look at our racing is a little different. Like, you look at it as a regional series with KWS, or is that still considered a local show, right? The 360 local stuff out here can be very difficult. So I think it's right there. But as far as like weekly, if you really want to get picky, then I would say probably Pennsylvania is as tough as it gets. And Knoxville's probably not too terribly far behind. Frank said you're going to need an energy drink sponsor if you're driving the merch trailer across the country following the toter. Yeah, you're not wrong. Trying to keep up with my dad. He's such a good trucker. Like, I'll need a couple 5-hour energies or something. Max said, do you think high limit will last in the long run? Like we kind of talked about it earlier, I think it's a fun conversation because, like I was kind of saying, people get, I think, really emotional on the topic of the high limit versus the Outlaws. But, for me, as I was saying, is like, I just want to see how it all plays out. I don't want to be the guy that's saying this, or I think this or that or whatever. Like, I just want to see how it plays out. I give both a ton of credit. They're both trying to do big things in the sport. They both have a different approach. There's a lot of money right now in sprint car racing, so that's a good thing. Is there some cons to the whole thing? Absolutely, probably. I couldn't necessarily tell you what they are, but I've listened to people kind of give their takes here and there, and like there's probably some truth to a lot of that, but I think there's also a lot of pros, right? So you just for me, I just have a positive outlook on the situation. I think it was cool that you had the opportunity to go run full time with High Limit. You have the full time with the Outlaws, and they both kind of have their different things they're offering. One's a charter system, one's guaranteed tow money, and a point fund, a really good point fund. The Outlaws have a great point fund. So I don't know. Like I said, it's just two different ways of doing it. And I think the great thing about the country we live in is choice. And if you like one or the other, you get to go give it that opportunity, and you're not stuck. Like I was saying, though, I totally get why World Racing Group does things how they do it, and I get what the High Limit is trying to do on their side of things. So just a lot of respect for both of them, and we're going to be happy to support both this year and kind of bounce around with a nice pick and choose schedule. And I guess we'll kind of see how things all end up shaking out. But the last thing I hate is how people, like I said, jump the gun and are making posts on this, and how the Outlaws didn't have that many cars, so it's the series is dead, or High Limit didn't have many at Golden Isles, so this or that, or there was no fans. Like, all that doesn't mean nothing. We're not even far enough into the season to know anything. And I think both, even though the Outlaws are super established, they're going to make mistakes and make themselves better. And High Limit's going to learn along the way, and they're going to make themselves better. And we're all going to still be here at the end of the day to watch the best race we can. And I'm going to be there to race in the best race I can. So that's how I look at the situation. And yeah, my main thing is I just want everyone to see how it plays out, because I think, we're in a really interesting time in the sport, and it's not always going to be like this. So we got to take advantage of what's in front of us. Let's see. Oh, RT Production said, what's up, man? I bet you're excited about the season starting. By the way, wrap Carly in bubble wrap so she can stop getting hurt. That's what we definitely need to do. Carly, yeah, that's a good idea. A couple more people pop in the chat. A lot of you guys, thank you so much. We've been going for just an hour and 20 minutes now. Probably go for a little bit longer. If you have any more questions, pop them in the chat. I'll get them answered. I appreciate you guys. Being here to support. Brandon Taylor, do you have any new sponsors this year? Yeah, I'll list off my sponsors for you guys, so you kind of have an idea what to know moving into this season. And once you see the car, you'll kind of get a chance to eye up all the logos and figure out, how you could potentially support our partners if you would like, that give a lot to our program. I know I always personally try to support people that support dirt racing, right? And it's funny how I actually explain to people like how marketing in our sport does work, right? With different drinks or food or services, like, I see them on the side of a race car and I go, oh, I could really use that, but I'm using this company instead. So like, why am I using that company? They're not putting any money into our sport. How can we, give back to the people that do? So the first one, the Boss Big Box Store, they are in, they have a couple locations in Texas. They do home improvement and whatnot. And they have a location in Dallas. And then they have another one kind of in that area. And then they have one in Austin. So they're on the hood. On the side of the top wing, Shane DeWald Trucking, who was on my car last year. Shane's out of Roseburg, does a lot of great stuff. Big dirt, one of the biggest dirt racing fans you'll ever meet. Great dude. I'm very thankful for my relationship with Shane. So he's on the top wing. Also on the top wing, we have Earth It Environmental, Pit Stop USA, Carbon Works LLC, Let me pull up a picture. See, the problem is my car's not wrapped yet. I feel bad. I was hoping to roll through that, no problem. But the problem is my car's not wrapped yet, so I end up, screwing up because I'm trying to remember my visual, right? So we have Canopy Country, Earth Environmental, Fast Four Media, Pit Stop USA, Carbon Works LLC. Carbon Works does construction and whatnot in Roseburg. Pit Stop USA is a one-stop shop for online motorsports gear, racing components, parts dealer. You can check them out on Pit Stop's website. Fast Four Media, they stream micros and outlaw carts out here on the West Coast. Kyler Shaw, one of my best buddies. Gosh, he supports my program a ton. I'm very thankful for our relationship. Earth Environmental, they do aquatica restoration in Northern California, over on the coast, kind of in the Eureka area and whatnot. So they do a lot of cool things. They've been supporting our program for a while. And then Canopy Country is right here in Medford off Highway 62. My good friend Johnny Burke, his family owns it, and they've been great supporters of us. ABC Powder Coating, they do our powder coating here in Medford. A new company helping us this year, S-Tech. They are out of Washington, and they produce the most highest quality wraps and films for your vehicle. We're going to have some of their product this year on our race car, and it's all for protection and for great looks on what you drive on a daily, or a nice vehicle that you a little higher end that you like to take and show off, and all that good stuff. So I can't wait to show you guys some of their product. They're going to be on the nose wing this year. Then we also have Champion Car Wash out of Roseburg. Tie 22, Boost It Motorsports, Triple X, and we have a couple other smaller contingency stickers and whatnot. So, and also we have Rod End Supply, doing all of our rod ends on our race car. So we got a lot of great support. Some other contingency sponsors: K1 Race Gear, Sellers Race Wings, Quick Car, Valco Wheels, QRC Receiver. So we have a lot of great help. I'm very, very lucky this year. So our car is full of logos. And like I said, very, very lucky to have, you need that great support to get up and down the road, right? So that's, I can't wait to finally show it to you. We just got a couple more days. Things are going to be getting wrapped soon. Be patient with me. Let's see. Jill Van Horn. Where do you see yourself 10 years from now? Sprints, late models, or jump to asphalt? I see myself hopefully still in sprint cars. I do. Like I mentioned earlier, the only thing I could see myself maybe doing is jump into the NASCAR route, for a race or two if I had the funding in this la la land world you could possibly live in. Other than that, probably still be sprint car racing and hopefully just still involved with the sport. I don't know if I want to be a driver necessarily forever, but I want to be involved. I think a lot of it too depends on where racing goes. Obviously right now it's a difficult time to race, and it could get more difficult. Maybe it could get less difficult, more in the sense of just, with the world we live in, right? And some of our outside factors that affect that. But we'll kind of just have to see where the ride goes and enjoy every minute of it. Eric said, do you feel like once you get your first big 410 win, start winning your second race and beyond will come faster and easier? Absolutely. That's usually how it goes. It's funny, even at the kart level, you see these kids that try week after week after week and get that first win. And, actually like one of my good friends, Parker Mockridge, she films on YouTube here and whatnot. You guys have seen her promote her channel and whatnot. She just got her first 250 win at Red Bluff, and it was her first Red Bluff win ever. Perfect example. Red Bluff's such a tough place to win, and she tried race after race after race and was so close, and then something would happen or have a failure or get in a crash or someone take her out, whatever the case may be, right? But tried week after week after week. And then finally, like one night, it was just like clockwork. Like everything worked exactly how it was up until the A. And then the A went perfectly. She led every lap and won the race. And Red Bluff's not an easy place to win. And so I've had situations like that. I've seen that with other kids. But once you win that first one, and then all the races after that, it's like you're a contender, you're there. And, sometimes you click off your second, third, or fourth win, right away. So I think similar concept. That's for some reason, that's how the world works. The first one's always the hardest, and then they all come easier after that. Oh, RT Production says, the other thing I wanted to ask about sponsoring this year, RT, here's what you do. Send me an email. My email is tannerholmesracing@gmail.com. Send me an email. I'll get back to you right after this. We can get that all set up and taken care of. If you're interested in being on our car, we can still get you printed and on time for the reveal. So if you're interested, and anybody else, I guess, watching, but we always have room. We still have a couple spots this year. So we always can make it work as well. We appreciate having as many partners as possible and what you guys do given into the sport of dirt racing. Let's see. I really do appreciate you guys supporting and hanging out with us on this Thursday. If you have any last questions, definitely drop them in the chat. We'll make sure to get them answered here. We're losing a little bit of daylight in Southern Oregon. We're probably finish the afternoon by working on the car. We're going to try to go run into town probably. So should be good. And then we'll get ready to head out this weekend to Red Bluff Outlaws tomorrow afternoon. Like I said, if you guys have any last questions, definitely drop them. Let me know what you're doing this weekend. Let me know when your first race is, what car you're going to be driving. It's the season's going to be here before we know it. It's crazy. I mean, unless we have any weather, which we always do out here, I would say it's going to be very common for the season to start probably end of April, beginning of May is when the first Northwest race will probably happen. Maybe if we get lucky, it'll be a little sooner. It's funny how bipolar Mother Nature can be. At one point, it will look like we're going to be racing in 2 weeks. And it'll be sunny. And you're like, man, if this continues, like we're going to be on track in no time. Everything's going to be dried up. And then like a blizzard will hit. Like that's what kind of happened recently. It was super warm for a couple of days. And then it was the middle of winter again. So that's the world we live in out here in the Arctic Circle, I say in the Pacific Northwest. But Mel said, Tanner, are you going to a gum shield for your teeth this season like some drivers have done? Great question. Good topic. So the mouth guard, I'm going to try to experiment more with the mouth guard here, maybe moving into the season. I did run it once, and I'm trying to be careful how I say this because I don't want to make it seem like mouth guards are bad by any means, but I am a little bit of, this is embarrassing probably to say, but I'm a little claustrophobic in a way. So this is going to sound crazy, but when I ran it in my Outlaw cart, by the time I put my helmet on and then I put the mouth guard in, it felt like I couldn't really breathe. Now, when I was going, I was fine on the track. I was fine once I fired off, like you don't really think about it. But in staging and stuff, sitting there, like maybe what I would do is maybe I need to like just not have it in until I go out, but still even then, like it was a little, but anyway, so it just made it feel like I couldn't breathe as well. And so I just need to work through that and figure out maybe that was just I wasn't fully comfortable with it yet or whatever. But I think it's a great concept. And I think that actually more drivers should, look into it and be concerned about using it. It's a very great idea. And I think it can prevent, worse head injuries in a crash, whatnot, biting your tongue, whatever the case may be. And for me, there was never like a choking hazard concern. I mean, I think as long as you have it in your mouth, like I don't know, something crazy would have to happen for you to swallow it in a crash. I'm not saying it's not possible. So I tested it a little bit. I need to test it more, but I probably didn't give it a fair assessment. I just didn't love it when I first used it, but I need to give it another go. It's just I'm working myself back up to it because I'm not gonna lie, if you know what I'm talking about, like if you feel a little claustrophobic and then you put your helmet on, you have that in, you feel like you can't breathe, like it's not a great feeling. So yeah. Michael Jr. said, what do you think about Placerville? Looking forward to meet you when you come to Old Hangtown. Placerville is nuts. Reminds me of Red Bluff. It's very tight, very, cowboy up, gas it up, curb on your right side, berm on your left side. Like you either roll the bottom real slow or you absolutely let her eat against the fence, or not the fence, but the curb and the hill. So you don't find places as unique as Placerville too often. That's what I really like about it. It's a very unique racetrack. Eric said, I appreciate you using photos I took for some of your thumbnails. Is there something safety-wise that you think needs to be addressed racing that is not? Eric, I appreciate your support. We need good pictures of our race cars, our beautiful-looking race cars going around the track. And, you contributing to that. It's huge. What do I think needs to be addressed? I think things are in a pretty good spot. I don't really have a lot of complaints. I think the fire safety aspect is made progress with the suppression systems. I feel like the Outlaw bars have done good things. Only other thing I think about often is, I think having the proper fire and safety teams at these different racetracks. I think that's big. So, I do think about that here and there. I think, but I think the Outlaws and High Limit are working in that direction to have that all taken care of. So long story short, I think most things are, headed in the right direction, and I think are only going to get better and probably improved as time goes on. So. Well, guys, we just crossed over an hour and a half, and I really appreciate you guys all tuning in. I think that's going to end it for today's live stream. Thank you guys so much. We are going to reveal the car soon. We're going to have more content coming. Things are really about to start ramping up. So be prepared for a lot of cool vlogs, a lot of cool content on here, on our Facebook page, all across the board. And we just appreciate your guys' support. People ask all the time, how can I support? Man, just by watching the videos, leave a like, comment, whatever it is, subscribe to the channel. It's free, all that stuff, you know, supports our team a lot. If you guys are wanting to also, you know, go the extra mile, people ask all the time, you know, we're going to have merchandise, we're going to have mini wing panels, we're going to have diecasts, so cool collectible stuff. All that also supports the team. Coming and seeing us in person, come and seeing us on our website, all that stuff is super helpful. But no matter what, we appreciate it. We thank you guys for all your support, and I'll see you at the track soon or on our next video.